Okay, no, we Gucci. I hit start streaming instead. We good.
Alright everyone, and welcome to the Checkpoint Podcast. My name is Dominic aka Fireskull, here today with...
For once you actually get
Hello.
the intro.
Howdy, my name is Justin Cho, and I am known by the masses as Throbbing Chode.
This is B-Chan. Hello.
What a bitch name.
Fuck off, dude.
Sorry, Beachy, I didn't hear what you said.
This is B-Chan. Hello.
No, I meant you made some sort of comment, and Jay talked.
Oh,
The B
I was gonna say, this is the
stands-
first time you actually made, like, a proper intro for yourself.
Well, yeah, because you wanted me to figure I might as well.
Sounds
Alright,
good.
so we're gonna be talking about Anthem, in particular the VIP demo that happened over the weekend. I assume both of you checked it out at least to a certain extent, so I figured we could start with first impressions.
Okay, so I didn't actually watch it, but I do know that it was a plethora of, like, issues. I know there were bugs, there was a lot of restarting, there were server issues, and it was very framey also, to say the very least.
From the article that I'm reading right now, the public statement made by Chad Robertson, BioWare's head of live services, the three issues that mostly occurred were platform connections, entitlement issues, where like some people who had certain entitlements were unable to log in to the demo, and then yeah, I mean I guess entitlements is kind of like
It has to deal with, so entitlements in that sense has to deal with awarding people with certain gear
yeah pre-order
and
incentives,
flagging
yeah.
them.
Ah, I thought they were just whiny bitchy children. But, okay, go on.
And then infinite loads, which apparently
Oh.
they did have some infinite load issues during internal testing, but those were isolated cases. But now they're finding
Yeah,
a lot
so-
of infinite load issues because of people's different ISPs and home networks.
Yeah, so let me explain that a little bit. Basically, the way they set up their server system, so normally speaking, when servers hit max capacity, the way most games are programmed, you'll keep pinging the server, and the server will just send you a flag saying, like, we're full, and the issue will then drop a lot more people than normal. What happened this time was actually the opposite of that. They had it set up so it would just keep pinging. So they basically set it up to DDoS themselves, NEA's servers. So that's where a lot of the issues came from in terms of connectivity.
Good
The
God.
self-DDoS.
Yeah.
The
There were-
unseen self-DDoS is the deadliest.
There were certainly frame rate issues. The Xbox One X could barely get, I believe, 30 FPS, which
Really?
is obviously a problem. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
is this for the Xbox One? Oh wait, S. Oh, so it's the Xbox One X. Okay, so this is the original One X, or
This is the only version of the One X,
The-
which is the new one.
The current Xbox One, which is the newest one.
No. Xbox One X is a different model.
Yeah,
wait, wait.
yes, yeah, I know. Okay. Making perfect sense to me now. Naming issues, man. Naming issues.
Right? Okay, so there was a PS4, PS4 Pro, Xbox One, Xbox One X.
X, yep.
Got it.
There was an S in between the normal and the X.
There's also, yeah, isn't the Xbox One S also a version?
Yeah, but the S is just like increased
Like-
capacity and is older. The X is the one with 4K capability and better performance hardware.
Ooh, wow. Okay.
As-
And that's
Come.
still running below or barely hitting 30 FPS. Ooh.
Yes, which is not that unexpected for that sort of game. And honestly, okay, so jump into first impressions. So obviously, you know, we can only touch on so much of it in terms of graphics and stability. But from what I saw of the graphics, the particle effects in particular really look gorgeous.
Amazing.
It really enhanced the ambiance of the space.
Yes.
And there's a fair amount of water in the various areas. It's actually part of the flight mechanic. It cools down your, like, what's it called? Overcharging effect on your booster, so it'll allow you to fly longer if you fly near to water or in water, something like that.
Really? Wait, that's
Yeah,
really
so
cool.
it's really cool.
That's
Yeah,
really
it's a
cool.
really cool way to integrate the environment with the system.
Oh man.
So I did really like most of the map design. The combat I saw people participating in had a vertical element to it that you don't see very often, and at least it looked to me like it didn't break the game. And they were able to make it work without making all of the AI just work off aimbots. So yeah.
Could you speak a little more about the map design?
Sure. So the map is you come out of this forge, like this main area, and fly down,
Right.
and you have a fairly large kind of area you can land in, and then each area of it is sort of sequestered into zones with different enemies and occasionally mini bosses. I didn't actually get to watch any of the boss gameplay, so I can't comment on that, but the map kind of freedom was pretty significant.
It is significant.
So
'cause you
not
got
open world
free
though, right?
travel. It's so cool.
It probably counts. Like it's more open world than Destiny. It's less open world than Saints Row, I guess.
Oh, that's saying something though, because Destiny is pretty open worldish.
Well, so Destiny is open world-ish in the sense it has a linear set of levels that within each level is very open, right?
But then once you come out of the levels, then you can freely explore the open world.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there's like different stages of sorts for Destiny.
Well, yeah, but the other thing about the stages is that they don't open all at once, which is the other thing that makes it sequestered. Whereas Anthem, we didn't really get a look at all the ways it'll block that kind of progression, but for the time being, just the accessible area in the VIP demo was already really large.
Oh wow.
I'm not gonna lie, this is this kind of third-person skill-based shooter was kind of like one of my childhood dreams.
Really?
But seeing it come to fruition it's not as impressive as I thought it'd be.
Well, I
Or
mean,
maybe I
Jjo, for a third-person shooter, you already have the Division.
Well,
Yeah, I don't know if that's the same exactly.
yeah, this one is like more fantastical, which is kind of what I had in mind when I was a kid.
Bigger
Like-
sense of wonder, for sure.
Yeah, first person / third person, very free form. You get to go wherever you want and complete missions, but then you shoot a lot of shit on the way, and then. But it's also framed kind of like a MOBA. This was like when I was getting into League, and I was like, imagine if you made League into first person, and then you incorporated all of League of Legends' lore into like a story that you could progress through, and just like
Small aside, how much of a clusterfuck would that be?
It would be a big clusterfuck, but I was just like, wow, if it could somehow become a reality, then that'd be amazing.
Wait, I
But-
That was
wrote down my
kind of
first-
what, not Smite.
Yeah, Smite is. That's all I was about to say. Yeah, Smite is the third-person League
Kind
of
of,
Legends.
but Smite isn't like, it's not like, first person, third person.
Yeah, no, it's like a half step in that direction.
Yeah, just like a tiny baby step.
I mean, more so than Division, anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
But,
Anyway,
the Division does scratch another itch that I had. This one, it doesn't quite scratch that fantasy, mythical, first-person, third-person shooter itch. I don't quite know why. Destiny 2 didn't either.
I'll say this. From
Yeah,
what I
it certainly
understand,
didn't for me.
I don't think Anthem
It was better than
has-
Destiny 1, at least, but...
It was better.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Picha.
Dom, can you confirm? I don't think Anthem has a first person.
I don't believe it does.
Yeah,
See,
from
I
what I've
was
read, it's
fine
only
with
third
either
person.
one. I was like, I don't care if it's third person or first person as long as it's a shooter.
Ah,
But I don't know. This Anthem looks pretty cool, but something about
is it EA?
no, it's not EA. Something about this whole theme of being magical but also shooty at the same time doesn't seem to work very well.
Well, it definitely doesn't go as far in that direction as Destiny.
Yeah, Destiny is actually like there's a lot of very difficult to explain magical forces that go on
Yeah.
with your character.
This one seems more like sci-fi that does things that are similar to magic stuff.
I think I know why. I think I'm just very bored of the sci-fi flashy particle effects. And the reason why I like Division is because it's very down to earth, run and gun, very.
You see people. You see.
Yeah, it's very mortal. You know.
Yeah.
You know, people look like people. Guns shoot like guns. There might be small variations of technology, like you've got drones, you've got turrets, and those are pretty high tech. But it's still very much grounded in the 21st century. And I'm very tired of seeing all these blasty particle effects in all these games. Like Overwatch is very particle-y. Destiny 2 is very particle-y. Anthem, I'm noticing, is also very particle-y with these shields, with these big ball explosions, these giant lightning bolts.
Yeah.
Well, there's a technical reason for that.
Yeah.
What do you mean
But
by
I just
technical
don't think
reason?
I like that aesthetic. I'm getting a little tired of it.
So what I mean by technical reason for it is, obviously, you're talking about that as opposed to textures and increasingly up-resing them. And at a certain point, not only does that get... Actually, it's part and parcel. So that gets very large in terms of space, in terms of bite size. And that makes pretty much everything else much more complicated in terms of rendering, in terms of networking it all. And so particle effects are kind of a good intermediate step where you can kind of cut some of those corners because for whatever reason, whatever type of effect they are, they don't have to be as extremely high detail as a texture.
Kind of to like mask it.
It's not so much masking as it's a design choice to lessen the burden on the player's hardware.
Yeah. Textures, but aren't textures some of the easiest things to render in a game?
Oh, fuck no.
What? Because with the what?
Yeah, dude.
Can you explain now? I was on
Jonathan,
the same
okay,
page.
so
Yeah.
here's that work. Okay, yeah, no problem. So I have what I think is a pretty easy way to explain this. So, although I appreciate Jonathan's assist. So let's take a texture, let's say a leaf. You know, it's just a leaf in a forest, you know, looks like a leaf, cool. Well, people know what a leaf looks like more or less, and for your mind to hold a certain suspension of disbelief, you are going to have certain effects applied to it, notably stuff like lighting. So, okay, you've got this texture, and then you have to overlay this lighting effect on it, and then calculate how that lighting effect basically performs and makes it look, right? So let's say it's a 264 by 264 texture, and that means there are that many pixels, it is parsing, and then re-evaluating in terms of the lighting. Well, if you up-res that to HD textures, much less to current-gen, very high-level textures, that is the factor you are multiplying the math by for literally every single texture that is affected by any kind of shader and any...
Okay, I have a question about that then.
Sure.
Then why is it that whenever I'm tweaking a game and I go to an optimization guide, they always put textures as the lowest priority for frame rate increases, because the difference between highest and like medium to low is very negligible. It's literally like 5 frames compared to something like shadows, particles, and lighting, which that's usually like it can jump from anywhere between 10 to 20.
Jay, so that's what I just said, is those things operating onto the textures are what makes it so performance hitting.
But so
by reducing the shadows or the anti-aliasing, etc., you are reducing the performance hit from their effects on the textures.
But what about particle effects in something like Anthem?
Usually you won't be able to adjust them, or the lower graphic settings will get rid of them entirely and replace them with a cheaper effect.
Yeah, I guess it's literally... They usually categorize it into like video game detail, and that includes a lot of other things besides particles. So
yeah, if it's a shoddy settings, yeah, they cut corners. But yeah, so that's the kind of answer in a nutshell.
So your response as like developers picking particles over textures, to me that's a little confusing, because it seems like particles seem to hit my frame rate more, but that's just purely anecdotal, so I don't really
no, that's correct. But that's not mutually exclusive with what I'm talking about.
But textures do hit performance very much, right?
Yeah, so the reason that might affect your frame rate more noticeably is, okay, so let's say you enter a new zone, right? It'll render all the textures, you might have a hiccup, but then it'll be fine after that.
Right, that's the loading.
Well,
screen, right, yeah.
Sure. Well, when you pop out a texture, let's say, I don't know, a gunfire effect, right? It has a muzzle flash, maybe some sparks coming off of it, etc. Well, that is all like a very intensive thing that is only happening for a small moment. So any kind of lag that happens with processing anything else in the game, if that causes it to hiccup, it will directly affect your frame. Whereas the texture, due to pop in and various techniques you can do to get around it, they can kind of mask that frame rate hit. So you're absolutely correct, but it is not the same as saying the textures are more intensive.
Okay, I think I see what you mean. Kind of like,
Sorry, I'm trying to explain a very, very like complex concept here.
because they all interact with each other. I know it's just a clusterfuck of because you can't pinpoint it to like one exact thing. It's like, oh, you can't just say textures are easier than particles because they all affect each other.
Yeah, of course I'm talking in general. There are definitely games out there that, yeah.
This is more layman terms. Okay.
For my own understanding, Dom, it kind of sounds like the more pixels, I guess, in a texture pack, it just leads into a domino effect where like shades, particle effects, everything else is kind of like dependent on how detailed your textures are. Is that kind of it?
Sort of. It's the difference between what you're loading and what you're displaying. Like you take anti-aliasing, right?
Yeah.
Like you know it is the thing that smooths jagged edges. Well, it is doing that by applying a particular algorithm to however many pixels there are. So the lower res the texture, the less performance hit the anti-aliasing will be for you.
Ah, yes. Okay, got it.
So it's actually somewhat exponential the higher you render your textures, depending on how high your anti-aliasing is as well.
So much so. Like you've probably noticed in those performance reports, they often tell you to lower the anti-aliasing.
Yes.
Yeah, because anti-aliasing is definitely very dependent on everything else.
That makes everything look so smooth.
I don't like anti-aliasing. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Really?
I really do.
It's so good. It makes it
like
not look
advanced forms
pixelated.
I mean, obviously you have to have anti-aliasing on, but I like FXAA. I'm totally fine with that compared to like the higher versions.
True. Well, usually if I can afford one, I can afford both.
Is the other one called SMAA or something? I don't remember.
There's FXAA, SMAA, MXDAA, and two others, TXAA, and one that I don't think is ever exposed in setting screens.
Which one is the one that blurs out the edges? Because that one is the worst of them all. Might be SMAA?
I mean...
I think it might be SMAA. Let me see. SMA... Blur.
Well...
Here, TXA, SMA... MLA, processing, anti-aliasing. FXA, processing, anti-aliasing faster than an MLA. TAA, temporal, time axis, anti-aliasing. SMA...
Yeah, generally all of them can do a form of that.
Yeah. Oh, okay, so TXAA is the blurring filter. Jesus, this is the worst.
Probably most likely to be, yeah.
That's the one that takes the least.
If it's high enough, though, you're not going to notice. Because it'll only blur it far enough away from you.
SMA and TXAA are the blurring ones. Okay.
I will be right back.
Yeah.
Okay, actually I think it's the TXAA one that's the worst.
So that's the one that requires the least amount of power, it sounds like, right?
I don't think so. I think it requires a lot of processing power.
Huh.
But
that's the one that blurs out the edges.
Yeah, it also it makes everything look kind of equalized, you know? Nothing's gonna look super pop outy. Everything's kind of gonna blend together very naturally, but it's also gonna look like you take off your glasses a little bit, you know?
That's what
except
it sounds
like
yeah.
with a very mild amount of that, and it's only the edges. But that's kind of annoying for me because it does remind me of me taking off my glasses. I'm like, I don't fucking want that. I come to play video games because it's clear and it's right in my face, not because.
It kind of feels like you're almost like lowering your resolution at that point, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't see the outline of
in
stuff.
a way.
What the hell?
Yeah. Like instead of everything is a blur, it's like the edges are a blur, and you're just like, I didn't sign up for this. Yeah.
I did not pay good money to get a good graphics
Yeah,
card for this
to
kind of stuff.
make my graphics worse. Exactly. There's a Vermintide setting that I think sets it to that, and I could not play Vermintide like that.
Lol.
Sometimes you just need a little bit of clarity.
I feel like you need a lot of clarity for especially games like what? Oh god, can you imagine if you play something like Counter-Strike using that kind of stuff, and you're trying to spot the smallest, just the smallest hint of an enemy, like a head or an arm or something, and you just can't tell because it's too blended in. That's
where anti-aliasing could actually be kind of bad, because it's actually pretty easy to see like well, I guess it depends on the player.
Yeah. Because
some things are easier to see when they're bad in graphics,
I mean, because but if you think about it, like if your anti-aliasing is too bad, you're just gonna see like blocks, So
but like the players will also move as ugly blocks, and that's gonna be more eye-popping if you think about it. The most professional settings, whenever I tried to get like competitive with some sort of game, I would always look up competitive graphic settings.
Oh.
They always lower the texture to something really ugly and really drab.
Well, I mean, isn't that to improve performance? I thought that was just to improve performance.
So it's performance, but your computers get good enough to a point where performance doesn't really matter. So most of the textures are really ugly and flat because they don't want reflections and shadows and other weird things getting in the way. Because sometimes a reflection might be like a little jarring for the eyes because it's a little too shiny, You just want to see the player on the background, and you want to see that they're different colors. Sometimes players actually blend in with the background when there's like a lot of shadow covering them and a lot of shadow covering the background behind them, so they're kind of just like they're not a mess of black, but it's just a little bit of black blending with a little bit of black. That's annoying.
Exactly. I mean, that's exactly what happens all the time in like games like PUBG, Fortnite.
Yeah, because sometimes you can't see someone and they just pop out, and you're just like, what the fuck do I do? Because they're just almost invisible. Exactly. It's a little harder to react, and that's like what makes or breaks.
So I want to pivot us back to Anthem. B-Chan, what are your thoughts?
As far as what I know about Anthem so far, I've only seen the trailers. It looks great. I'm on the same page as Cho for some strange reason. I think it's also because I've just been jaded from seeing stuff like Warframe, Destiny 2, Destiny 1. Not so much because of the particle effects. I kind of feel it's the subject matter for me. How do you say it? Like, everyone being in suits is cool, Like, I'm a personal huge fan of Gundam. Like, I like seeing robotic suits. It's awesome. But seeing...
It's oversaturated.
Well, I was gonna say, seeing the level of the suits. Like sleek design suits that are just floating around without rotors or flapping wings or, nothing analog about them. Yeah, it makes it feel more oversaturated due to what Warframe, Destiny have done so far. And yeah, the gritty feeling of Division, that's what attracts me to Division, similar to Cho.
What? Oh, go ahead.
I'm probably gonna get Anthem, but the main reason I won't get Division 2, when's it coming out?
When Sekiro is out?
March.
March 15th.
March or May?
When does Sekiro come out?
March.
March 22nd. And since I'm not going to play Division 2 and play as much as I want of it in a week, I won't be buying it.
I mean, it's fine because Ubisoft will often try to, to put it on sale anyways.
Wait, what's releasing in March?
If Anthem launches without these performance problems, I'll probably buy it.
What's releasing on March?
March 22nd is Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice.
Oh, Sekiro.
made from the same creator as Dark Souls, and as you know, Dom's a huge Dark Souls fan.
Japanese Dark Souls.
A much faster paced Japanese Dark Souls.
I mean, it's slower than Bloodborne.
I'm really curious about that. Like, it looks faster than Bloodborne, though. Like, I played a little bit of Bloodborne. Yes, I agree it's fast, but...
Okay, I've played all of Bloodborne and watched so many hours of Bloodborne. No, Sekiro is not as fast as Bloodborne.
Really?
No, the vertical traversal is pretty high in mobility, but that doesn't mean the pace as fast. Like, there's even a stealth element in Sekiro, dude. It's not the same speed.
Oh, okay, I get what you're saying. Like, sort of like, you're saying, you're kind of talking about, like, individual fights with what do you call it, with enemies and such.
No, I'm talking about all the pacing.
Oh, okay.
Like, individual fights are going to be much closer to Bloodborne than the pace of the game as a whole. Like, there are going to be places in Sekiro where you just sneak around and, like, listen and try to eavesdrop on guards and hear information and stuff. Like, that is nothing like Bloodborne.
Okay, I see what you're saying then. That's gonna be cool. Okay. I'm looking forward to Sekiro too.
But do your players' testicles shrink when the environment is cold?
But yeah, so I think we've kind of gone around about Anthem, and we've hit 45 minutes, so...
Oh, we're almost there, but
anything else you guys want to say?
Actually, I want to ask you guys what you guys think about the what do you call it, the competitors for Anthem. Like,
competitors?
Yeah.
Like what,
so,
Division, Destiny?
Yeah, so, you know, Anthem is part of, well, I would say is part of the loot shooter genre. That's kind of out at the moment. Or, you know, that a lot of people are actually doing at the moment. Yeah, you know, so we have Destiny, we have Warframe, we have Division 2 coming out soon. We even have, the rumored appearance of Borderlands 3 coming out.
Okay, so Borderlands 3 isn't coming out soon enough for it to be an issue. Division 2, its player base doesn't have as much overlap. It's definitely Warframe and Destiny that are its main competitors.
Yeah.
It has the potential to blow them out of the water because Warframe's old and Destiny has, like, permanent issues, apparently. So it really depends on how strong its launch is.
I mean, so based on what we've seen so far, it seems that the issues for Anthem, like we've discussed, are just the network issues, some graphic issues. Otherwise, it was mostly technical stuff.
Yeah, I haven't heard that many. I haven't heard any critiques really about the gameplay that didn't sound easily fixed.
Right?
Seems very clean so far.
And like from
because I knew some people were worried about the health bars because, you know, that's afflicted everything we've just talked about, really. And from the gameplay I was watching, like, yeah, they had health bars, but not excessively so.
Well, what do you mean by that exactly? Could we go back? Like, what was the issue that people had with the health bars?
Oh, sorry, but when I say health bars, I mean just having hard enemies just have a shit ton of health.
Oh, okay, so health sponges. Got it.
Yeah, if it's all bullet sponges, like, people get bored. It was a big issue with Division 1 until they revamped it. And like I said, I haven't seen any boss fights from the beta, if there were even any. But that didn't look like as much of a problem.
Okay.
I hope they make Division 2's story as compelling as Division 1. That's like a side issue, but I just hope that it's interesting.
Here's something I'm gonna say about the story of both games, actually. Like, Division's story is kind of for me. I like Division more for its gameplay. The Anthem storyline does not really pull me in at the moment.
I don't even know much about it, though.
Yeah,
that's another thing. I thought Division's story was super compelling. Probably the most fun that I had playing Division was playing level 1 to 30 because combat was really fun, like not late game combat was really fun. Loot was really interesting because discovering weapons was really cool. I liked hearing all the random logs on the side and paving way for the overarching story of the virus outbreak, and it added to that ruggedness of really desperate survival. That's what I like about Division 1. Everyone felt like they were actually like getting wrecked, you know, like it shows actual New York in shambles, like the real New
something
York
that
City.
we are that we can probably feel, cause it's
and the snow is extra depressing, and it adds like a beauty and also a feeling of desperation for everyone. It makes everything seem just that much more gloomy, and the factions were really cool to discover. I thought each faction had a pretty compelling backstory, although some were kind of unrealistic. Like the cleaners are literal fucking psychopaths that like to burn shit. Their excuse is kind of unexcusable about like, hey, we're here to cleanse all of the people who are infected with fire. Come join our faction. And you'd think that there would only be like a few of these psychopaths, but no, it's a literal fucking army of people in these garbage suits and flamethrowers. Like, that's not exactly realistic, but it's kind of interesting. Like the premise is more interesting than, you know, like a military faction. Even the military faction was pretty interesting too. Like they were a rogue military faction that split off from the U.S. government.
Yeah, the ones that were supposed to
have their
help
own different set of ideals.
Right.
Yeah.
That always made me laugh.
Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, see,
Like,
the
U.S. government would fucking crush you, but okay.
Like a lot of them were kind of funny. Like for some reason, these military men couldn't like pit themselves up against the cleaners and a few of these thugs every once in a while. Like you'd see them fighting in the streets, and they'd get their ass handed to them. That was mildly amusing.
See, I wonder if that's the reason why, J-Show, for you and me, Anthem does not seem to draw us in as much, because it doesn't. We don't. How do you say it? We don't connect with it as much because it's not during our time.
Yeah.
There doesn't seem to be a pressing issue that we can identify with.
Yeah.
Or
it's kind of like there's been so many sci-fi factions that have been introduced over the years in all of these games, in Mass Effect, in Destiny, in what's it called? What was the other one? Warframe. And all of these games, except for Mass Effect, I think, because Mass Effect is supposed to be pretty story-driven. All of these games have a very generic antagonist where it's like, we're here to conquer the universe, and we're gonna destroy all that's in our path, and that's literally it.
Yeah, that seems to be
why
the way...
are they doing this?
That seems to be the way Anthem is doing that, too.
How did they get so strong, you know? How are you trying to get stronger to combat these people, you know? Why do they want to dominate the universe is probably the biggest gripe that I have, because everyone wants to dominate the universe, but most of them are just power hungry, and that's boring as shit.
Like in Destiny, right?
Yeah, like the oh my god, the Destiny 2 cutscenes are fucking absurd.
They were.
Literally, that big chunky dude yelling out, "I'm here to conquer the world," and then his assistant is like, "Go take that Destiny Sun thing and take that power and dominate the world. It is your birthright." And
it must lose me. It
exactly,
must lose me.
exactly. That fucking pissed me off. And then later on, he kills his mentor and is like, "You're right. I'm going to take the sun, and I'm finally going to do it because it is my birthright." And I'm like, what the fuck? You didn't even have to kill him to do that. That's what he was recommending you to do. It hurt my head so much. Like, dude, I am no writer, but that is some of the worst storytelling that I've ever seen.
It's
my
interesting.
entire...
Because of Dom, as you are a story writer, could you shed some light on this? On like, why are sci-fi games just kind of going for more generic stories?
I don't know why you're thinking this is just sci-fi games. This is most games.
A lot of games. A lot of loot-based
Most games don't have good writing, dude.
Like, a lot of grindy RPG games have really shitty stories. Like, because it's not really the story that's getting people to come back, it's just the repetitive nature. That's why people think mostly of endgame rather than enjoying the beginning game of these grindy RPGs. Like, if you think about people talking about Division and Destiny, nobody really talks about the story for those. Even though, and nobody talks about level 1 to 30. You know,
Right, right.
people usually try to rush through that and get to endgame. At least hardcore players, because they're the ones who actually discuss it. Casual players, they're kind of content with finishing the game and playing a little bit of endgame content and just dropping it. They're totally fine with that. That's why you don't need a good story for these RPG games. It's like
Because people
the
are
loot
focusing
itself.
on the gameplay, right?
Yeah, you can focus on balancing issues instead of actually making a good story. Because even if it ships without any dialogue or any text regarding a story, people will play it.
I see. I wonder about that because games like Borderlands, Halo, they became great because they had fun gameplay, but also because you just had really good characters. And
No.
stories.
No.
Did you not?
Borderlands did not succeed based on its story.
Borderlands had a great story. I love Borderlands 2's
Uh,
story. I loved it. I love Handsome.
Whether or not it had a great story, that is not why it succeeded.
I think there's a lot of reasons why Borderlands succeeded. Art is a big one.
Mhm.
The art that they stole, by the way.
Wait, did they really?
Oh,
They-
yeah.
They borrowed it borrowed. Yeah, they borrowed it from another game that was basically shut down.
Oh shoot.
So,
So a game we would.
Yeah, Borderlands 1 looked like shit before.
yeah, before they actually copied the other game. Yeah, basically. So the whole franchise revolves around that stolen art concept. And so the art was a big deal. That's why people made such a big fuss about it, because the art was a big deal on why it succeeded, but it turns out it was actually kind of...
I just posted a picture of the gaming channel.
Yeah.
Not a picture, a video.
I think I know which one you're referring to. Yep, it's... Yep. Yep, that is hideous.
Borderlands,
That's what it's like without, like, the black outlines. And there's actually a setting for that.
it's called cell shading.
Yeah, you can go into the INI settings and disable cell shading, and that's kind of what it looks like.
Oh,
Well, okay, let's. It still looks better than that.
Yeah, it does like mention that. That's a very generic shooter. But Borderlands, his art was good. I'd say Borderlands had very good loot-based mechanics. A lot of them were... Their bosses were pretty interesting. Like, they weren't terrible. A lot of games, they have good like level progression, but then you get to the boss and it sucked ass. Borderlands is just like, it's like decent, you know? Every boss is kind of unique, and they're not all bullet sponges.
Right.
Their guns are super cool.
They were
That's
so
a big
cool,
one.
yes. The reloading
Yeah.
sequences for all the guns.
Yeah. So every gun was very unique. Every brand was very unique. The RNG system
It was
of
fantastic.
how guns were put together,
Yeah.
you have like 6 or 7 components, and then each component, like the barrel, the
magazine,
buttstock,
even, yeah.
the magazine, the sight, and then there's like 3 other ones. And then so each one of those categories has like 10 different ones. So when they say like 40 bazillion guns, that's pretty true. They probably have like tens of thousands of permutations just
Yeah.
based off of that formula, and they just mix and match, and then that thing in itself made the loot system super compelling.
I remember
That's
even
another
the
one. That's like
legendary
3.
weapons had permutations, which was, like the main big weapons. Even those had like variations, so that made it so much.
Yeah,
more
exactly. Yeah, your unique weapons were actually super unique. You know?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So, like, obviously story was super big too, but I think it's like evenly balanced up there with like a few other things. Borderlands' one story was pretty bad though. So
Fair.
Borderlands 2 is a different story than Borderlands 1.
Okay.
Borderlands
yeah,
1, I can't even remember.
I was talking about Borderlands
it
2,
was-
so yeah.
Did you play Borderlands 1, Brian?
I did not.
It's bad.
Really? Oh shit.
Gameplay was very interesting, like Borderlands 2, but it was not definitely not the story that kept me playing. Like, the classes were cool. Yes, so that's another thing about Borderlands 2. Their skill trees and their classes are very interesting. Their characters are interesting.
The side
which is
quests
kinda-
were amazing.
Yeah, side quests are super fun. That's a huge thing about Borderlands. Like, your endgame content is a big deal, and that was directly tied to a lot of the downloadable content that you had. So side quests in the downloadable content were cool. Side characters in the downloadable content were more or less cool. Some of them were like kind of but the good ones were really good, like Tiny
Right.
Tina, you know,
Oh god,
and
that
Torque.
was such a good.
yeah, those are really good experiences. Like, and I think those ones are very much story based. But if you think back to Borderlands 1, if I'm trying to recount what Borderlands 1's story was, it was kind of like Atlas attacks, kind of like Hyperion, but instead of Handsome Jack as the handsome, charismatic antagonist, you have this very militaristic lady come in, and she just wants the vault, and that's all she wants. And you kill her at the end, and then you stop her from getting the vault, and that's it.
Okay, so, interesting.
Yeah.
So just kind of generically like every other RPG that you just mentioned.
Exactly, yeah. They're just like, hey, this person's really evil, or she's gonna kill some shit if you don't kill her first, so you better start killing. That kind of thing.
Okay.
So, you know, Dom's right, like, games don't need a good story. And most games don't really have a good story. Yeah. Well, Borderlands 3 is not coming out soon, though.
They keep teasing.
No, neither is Mountain Blade Bannerlord.
You really want that, don't you?
Bannerlord is never gonna fucking come out. I fucking hate it. God damn.
Is there
Have
a
you played Mountain Blade?
Me?
Yeah. Have you played the Mountain Blade series?
Yeah.
What do you think of it?
Cool concept, meh execution.
Very, very true. But yeah, the execution had better be top notch now. I think so you know, totally, what was it? Was it Totally Accurate Battle Simulator or something like that?
Is that
The one where you
the one red versus blue? Just a bunch of
yeah, and then you spawn
yeah.
a whole bunch of things. You can spawn like chickens, you can spawn knights, you can spawn like zombies, that kind of thing, and you can choose how many you spawn.
Yes.
So yeah, Totally Accurate Battle Simulator is kind of like my other wet fantasy dream, which is large medieval warfare, which is part of the reason why I liked Lord of the Rings so much, because watching large armies hack at each other and watching medieval strategy really interests me as well. Like, and when you take that into like a sci-fi setting like Lord of the Rings, and you don't put it too over the top, then it becomes really interesting. I thought The Hobbit was pretty bad as a movie, but I think their battle scenes were pretty good as well.
Yeah, that CGI made me want to gouge my eyes out. Anyway,
Yeah, it's kind
I
of
think
soft.
yeah, it was some of the worst CGI I've ever seen.
It's bad CGI, but I think the concepts were really cool. I thought the ballista that spun around to counter the elves' arrows was really cool. I thought that was a cool concept. Like, watching multiple factions fight each other with their own unique strengths and weaknesses, that's a big boner for me. I like
with
that.
their own technology, right?
Yeah. So like
not
dwarves
real
are definitely
technology,
yeah, dwarves are very well, they're not like super advanced, but they're more equipment oriented than the elves, you know? Elves are definitely very disciplined, very physique focused kinds of people. They also have less people. Dwarves well, I'm
what
actually not
are you talking about?
Wait, how's that not Wait, okay, give me the rundown, Dom. What is
Okay, well, let's wrap up the podcast first.
Okay. I think this is an important, pivotal part of the podcast. This is like the whole bread and butter of what I think about it.
Alright, this has been the Checkpoint Podcast. My name is Dominic, aka Fire Skull.
Throbbing Chode.
This is BJ.
Signing out, everybody. Have a good night.
Alright. Give me your rant.
So, first of all, their populations are not